Well, hello. I'll tell you what, I am very excited today. I've got Dane Bowler on here. He is going to talk to us about a greatly underutilized financial tool for seniors. Anybody, and I hate to use that word in relationship to someone that's my age, but anyone that's 62 or older has a tool in their tool belt that they may not know they have. Okay. So, Dane, I want to have you introduce yourself, who you're with, and then we'll start getting into this whole mysterious Heckham thing.
Okay. My name is Dane Bowler, senior loan officer for New American Funding Mortgage. Um, and basically, what we do is I am also a certified um, reverse mortgage consultant. So I can help you through the process of getting your reverse mortgage out there.
Well, very good. Now, everyone's heard of reverse mortgage, and it's about as misunderstood as what heat pumps were when they first came out. And everybody, the first ones came out, they had a lot of glitches. They weren't necessarily the greatest thing since sliced bread. They've all been fixed, and then because I used to sell homes back in the '80s, and people were terrified of a slab, and they were terrified of a heat pump. And I knew at that point the technology had gotten to the point that both a slab and a heat pump were better than a crawl space and a General Electric, furnace. So
Correct.
but people didn't know that because they had heard horror stories from the days before. So you want to tell us a little bit about what I guess they call them a Heckham or
Yeah,
tell us what
it's
that's all about.
a HECM mortgage is basically it's a reverse mortgage that's controlled by the it's now controlled by the government. When reverse mortgages first came out, they were done by attorneys. So basically, the attorney would come and buy your home for you at a certain cost. You wouldn't have a mortgage payment then either. Then they would end up taking your home. So people didn't like him. Ronald Reagan got into office and said, nope, the government needs to regulate these. So now that we do them, we are now through the US government. Um, so the government now controls what what is said and done on these mortgages.
It's an FHA loan, isn't it?
Yes, it's a home. Basically, it's a home equity conversion, but it is an FHA loan. You do
Okay.
have the same fees as an FHA, um, but they do regulate how much cash you can receive. It is based on your age. Everything is 62 and over, like you said.
Okay. Well, in full disclosure, I actually have a reverse mortgage, and you were my guy that helped me walk my way through it. So it's like, but I have been a fan of and an advocate for them for about a decade. I've been trying to get realtors and everybody else to understand what kind of a tool this really is. And, but and that's just really what they really are, is a financial tool. It's a tool in your tool belt that you can apply different ways. I think that most people think that they're going to, they need them because they're broke and they need that money income coming in to help, put food on the table or what have you. And it is a means to do that if that's necessary, but that's not the only way of
No,
things
no,
going
no, no,
after it. In
no.
my case, I didn't take any money out. I'm letting it sit there in what now, correct me if I'm not using the right terms. Basically, the money I'm not using is becoming a home equity line of credit that if I want to use it, I can.
It is a line of credit,
Yeah.
and it's sitting there with a money factor, not an actual rate. It's a money factor of what your percentage was when closed, and what that does is that money builds interest on that money while it sits there. So you can use that money for long-term health care, buy a car, uh, buy another home somewhere, depending on how much money that you do have in your line of credit.
Yeah, so you basically have that line of credit there that you can use. What I like about it is the fact that, in my industry, I'm in the caring transitions. We basically help seniors downsize, pack, move, sell off their exit stuff, whatever. And so I see a lot of people who are forced into getting out of their home because their equity is in their home. Okay, so they have cash available to them, but it's all tied up in their home. If they take a home equity line of credit out of their home, then they have a monthly payment that they can't afford on their fixed income. So that really means they don't have access to their money unless they sell it.
Correct.
And on top of that, their taxes keep going up, and their utilities keep going up. All of a sudden, it becomes very difficult to be there. But in my opinion, if you've got that HELOC that you haven't touched, you've got that home equity line of credit there, you've got a bank account.
Correct. Yes, that money sits there. You can take it out whenever you need. When you do a reverse mortgage and you have X amount of dollars in equity in the property, you are given a 60-40 split. So basically on the first year, you can take out 60%. So that at the time of closing of the loan, you can take out 60% to do with whatever you need. The following year, they hold back 40%. And the reason they do that is because people, when back in the day, would take all the money and go to the casino or go on these big trips and then come back and not have any money left. So then they would call and be like, hey, I need more money. Well, the government stepped in and said, nope, we're going to alleviate that problem and only give you 60%, leave 40 in there gaining interest. So hopefully you can get your bearings about you and have that money left over for you, your second year.
But even when they do pull the money out to do with whatever they need to do with it, they don't have a monthly payment that goes corresponding with it like you would with a home equity line of credit normally.
Correct. That money is your money. There is no payment involved in that whatsoever. Now, you can pay back a reverse mortgage if you want. You can pay back a payment. You can pay back interest. There is no monthly statement. There is nobody coming after you. The only thing that you are required to take care of are your taxes and your insurance on your property and any home equity, any HOA that you may have.
Yeah, and that's like for me, when we talk about this, I have to. In fact, right before we went live here, I had to tell you how wonderful it's been not to have this payment. I mean, the average cost of living under this inflation we've been dealing with for the last 3 years has gone up $800 a household. It's been really nice not having to have the house payment on top of that. So that's been a nice little thing. We haven't taken any money out, don't have any intention of taking any money out. I'm just letting it go up at the 7%, and leave it alone,
Right.
But that's kind of, that there's so many things that can be done. And you were talking about, you can pay it back. A guy that I know that's very financially astute years ago went into a reverse mortgage. And then what he was doing is he basically, from a tax standpoint, he's over 70, so he has to take that money out by law for his retirement plans. So he takes out minimums for like 4 years, and then he takes out a big chunk in the 5th year and uses it to pay back the interest for 5 years of his HELOC, of his reverse mortgage, and then takes the tax credit.
Right. Another thing that a lot of people are doing that are have taken a loss in the market, instead of taking out your money out of your stock market to pay your bills, and that's what people were living off of, do a reverse mortgage, live off the reverse mortgage, pay yourself back once the stock market takes off again. Then you can just pay yourself back, and that money goes right back into that line of credit and sits there.
So tell me, what's the process of getting into a home? How do you know if it's a good thing for you? How do you know if you're a candidate that should really be looking into it?
If you're wanting to do some retirement, if you've got an early retirement coming up, if you've got some health issues coming up that you may or may not have long-term health care, short-term health care, but you've been in your house for the last 30 years and you have a bunch of equity in your property. I mean, we saw properties going up at 18% a year, 14% a year. Hell, some of them went up 20% a year. So people that thought they were sitting on 200 grand were actually sitting on about 400,000. So go in, have it assessed, do an appraised value, get your credit checked, and that kind of thing. And then what we do is find out your age, find out how much money is eligible to you, and then do the process just like a regular loan.
So now, one of the problems that reverse mortgages had at one time was, and it was usually because the homeowner was trying to cheat the system, and it was a situation where maybe he was over 62 and she was not, so they were taking it out in his name only, and then she was left where she didn't have her name on the house when it came due. That's
Correct.
not the case anymore, is it?
No. If you're over 62 and your wife happens to be younger, or vice versa, It is based off the youngest person's age. They can both go on the loan. You're both protected. Um, so if something were to happen to, let's say, the person that was 62 that had the reverse passed, um, and the younger person was not as of 62 yet, they do not have to make any payments on the property still. They can stay in the property as long as they want. They just don't have access to that cash, the equity. Now, once they become 62, then they have access to the ability to have that money. But the person would still be protected. Where back in the day, if the person that had the reverse mortgage passed and the person that was still under or younger than that, they had to move. They had to sell the property at that point in time.
So that's where you start hearing people talking about foreclosures. Well, you really can't get a foreclosure unless you don't pay your taxes or or something like that. Is that
Right.
correct?
The only foreclosure that would happen is if you didn't pay your property taxes.
Yeah.
If you have overabundance of cash and you don't care, there's what's called a Lisa. It is basically a program that is just like your escrows you have now. But what they do is they take it all up at once because there are no payments being made. So it can use up and consume your money. We try not to do that for people. We try to let the people pay their taxes and their insurance on their own to leave that out of the program. But you can have it set up to where we can pay them for you if you wish.
Okay. So now we're talking about reverse mortgages on the house that you have, what have you. What are the rules? Do you have to, way I understand it, you have to be in it 6 months and a day?
No, yeah, you have to be you have to live in the house one day basically out of the year for 12 months. So if you have if you live outside or have a summer property, or winter property, you can go to Florida for 8 months out of the year. As long as your set residence is at this one, you're fine. You just have to be there one day out of the year to set that up. So no, you can travel, you can do whatever you wish. One of the good things is now is you can sell the property. It's no different than a regular traditional loan. You're going to get a payoff, put the house on the market, pay that loan off, and move on. That equity is still yours. We don't keep it. You don't lose it. That line of credit that you're sitting on is still your money. So if you did decide to sell your home, that money is still yours in equity.
Yeah. So if something happens to you, that money it still would go to your heirs or what have you as well, correct?
Correct. You can leave it to whoever you wish.
Yeah.
If you were to do a reverse mortgage and you had $70,000 still sitting in equity in your property or $100,000, your loved ones have up to a year to pay off the loan, repay off the loans, sell the home, or refinance it in their name. It depends on however they want to handle it. Now, if you outlive the loan, which does happen, people are now living much longer than they were, before COVID, they were living much longer before than usual. You still aren't kicked out of your home. You're still not forced out of your home. You still don't have to make a payment. So if you use up $1 million and your house is worth 800 grand or 500 grand, it does not matter. You still get to stay in the home.
They have that really fancy term called no recourse loan.
Correct.
Okay. And define that for me.
It just means that there is no recourse whatsoever. As long as you pay your taxes and your insurance, you stay in the home. Nobody can take it from you. The bank will, basically it's an FHA loan, which means it's guaranteed and it's insured. So the lender doesn't even take a loss if you outlive the loan.
Hang on a second. Oh, there we go. I'm sorry, my phone was inside me a pain, but anyway.
Not a problem. So if you outlive the loan, like I said, what happens at that point in time, the bank gets with you. They have an appraisal done. They go 2% under what that appraised value is. You can then sell the home. There is no penalties to the heirs. There's no penalties to the estate, or how you have it set up.
So there's equity left. You or your estate gets it. If there's no equity left, you hand the keys back to the bank and go, thanks for the.
Yep. And then it's the bank's problem at that point in time. They give you the opportunity to put it on the market and try to make something, but if not, it is what it is at that point.
Yeah. Well, very good. Well, I mean, that's a big deal, and it does give people a lot of flexibility they may not have otherwise. Like the other thing that a lot of people don't understand is the thing called a HECM for purchase, where you can actually buy, a house with
Correct.
a reverse mortgage. A lot of people have a real hard time getting their heads wrapped around that. Could you kind
Well,
of tell us a little bit about that process?
yeah, and actually, it's really cool because right now, um, due to the housing market, the I don't know if anybody's paying attention, but the rental market has blown up because everybody sold their home because they had gone up 18%, 20%, 14% in Hamilton County, however you want to look at it. People were selling their homes and saying, "Oh, well, I'll just buy one later." Well, now the market has not slowed down, but the interest rates have gone up. Um, so all these people are sitting on cash. So now you're sitting there saying that maybe I can buy a $400,000 home. Well, technically, depending on your age, you could go out and buy yourself an $800,000 home, use $400,000 as the reverse mortgage side of it. The remaining $400,000 goes into a reverse mortgage. You don't have to make any payments. You just pay the taxes and the insurance. And you've now moved into a brand new home that's technically could be worth $700,000 or $800,000. You paid $400,000 for it, and you now are set and ready to go.
It's the same thing that a lot of people right now are in a situation where one, they don't know where they're going to find another house if they sell theirs. Okay, so that's
Correct.
a lot of boomers particularly are sitting in a house that they really don't want anymore because the kids are gone. They have all these extra bedrooms they're not using. They got a lot of space they're not using. A yard maybe they don't really want to take care of, and so they would like to have a simpler lifestyle. But and then a lot of them want to go buy a ranch. Or a ranch is the most expensive home you can build.
Right.
Okay. But you could actually go in with a reverse mortgage purchase and afford that upgrade home and not have a payment.
Correct. It's a great tool for real estate agents. You're looking because real estate agents get paid off the sale price.
Right.
So if you're showing someone a house for 200 grand because that's what they're telling you they can afford, well, find out their age, find out their income, find out their credit ratings, find out all that good information, and then you can then move them up from if they're at 200, you can move them to a 400 or a 350 or whatever. You can start showing them more better homes and better things for themselves and make more money off of it.
Well, a lot of people, and I know that I see this all the time where people that they're moving towards retirement. So the idea of having a payment doesn't appeal to them, but they want to downsize the house or what have you. So their idea is, I want to sell my house. I want to get this chunk of money and I want to pay cash for another house. Well, that's fine, but you're still tying all your cash up and you don't have that emergency fund. You don't have the
Correct.
ability to pull that line of credit out without making a payment. But with the reverse, you can.
Correct. You can actually, your line of credit doesn't exist when on a purchase because the remaining balance is what pays the mortgage. But you've now saved all that extra cash in your pocket. So let's say that you do have, $1 million and you want to buy a home, you do it on a reverse mortgage, keep all that cash in your name. You now have set yourself up for retirement.
Well, I had a friend that this was several years ago. I was trying to talk him into doing a reverse mortgage for his mom because his mom was down in Florida and she was showing signs of very early Alzheimer's. Was starting to there'd be an episode every so often, but it would go long time between. But it was a red flag going, hey, we may have an issue coming down the road,
Correct.
and so she was in Florida, he was in Zionsville, so it becomes very difficult for to take care of that. So I told him, I go, you would sell her place down there, take that money and buy that time a couple $100,000 home in Whitestown, okay, and put $100,000 down. You don't have any payment. Take that other part of money, you could buy long-term care insurance and never have to worry about it.
Correct.
So that's one way. Or what if mom and dad lived in Chicago in a great big expensive home and the kids lived in Fishers? Well, they could come down here and buy a significantly more inexpensive home on a downsize, take that other money, buy a home in Boca for their to
Right.
vacation,
Right. We have a lot of people that I have done mortgages for that had ailing parents that the parents are stubborn and won't leave home. Well, the house is paid for. Well, if you have the power of attorney or they're still can sign all the documents and they can still be explained to them, you can then take a reverse mortgage out and use their line of credit for their long-term health care. Have a nurse come and see them 3 days a week or 2 days a week, and start buying them supplies and having people around them because they just won't move. because we know how people are around your age. They don't like to leave their house. So they want to keep the house that they're in. So that is another situation that people are doing to that. Another one that's coming up is it's an unfortunate thing, but it's called gray or divorce. People that have been married for 35 and 40 years are now separating, divorcing. The wife wants to keep the house. The husband wants to keep the house. They have all this equity. You can do a reverse mortgage in the wife's name. She can then buy out the husband out of the shares of the line of credit and stay in the home and never have a mortgage payment again. That
Well,
is another way.
he could take his half and do the same thing.
Correct. He could take his half, take his share, and go and buy a house and do a reverse mortgage as well. So it's just it can save things, but it also can help separate and do the divorce, and you don't have to hate each other as much.
Yeah, it's like I said, that's the part that I think that people just totally miss is the fact that this is not just, Tom Selleck saying you can pull out, $200 a month to pay bills.
Right. It's you can set it
Yeah.
up to where you can get a monthly draw until your money runs out, for sure. Or you can set it up for, like I said, the lines of credit. You can take that whole first 60%, you can take that all at closing and go and buy an RV and travel and do whatever you want to do, depending on how much money you have. I've done reverse mortgages to help people buy cars that didn't want to make a payment on them. I've done a reverse mortgage to pay for a wedding for their children or their grandchild. I've pretty much done it all. I've done a loan where the gentleman had $700,000 in equity. He used that for his long-term health care because he was a retired firefighter and needed that money to, support himself after the 62, after he was, 75 or 80, because he was not going to leave his home.
Yeah.
He was just not. So he was setting himself up for the future, for sure. He was taking that monthly payment and paying himself back.
Well, and that's the thing that, that's why we're here today, is trying to get this information out to people to, as a realtor, if somebody's a realtor, they really should understand this, especially if they have clientele that are 62 and over, so that they can, I don't know that, this may not be for everyone, but I think everyone in that age group should at least look at it,
Right.
and run the numbers. Does it fit what my goals are? Does it not? Is it, and then, and I think that's a good place for them to go. I think realtors need to be an advocate to at least have people look, because a lot of people, they're still in their head that, well, it's a problem that I heard about 25 years ago. Well, forget that. Let's learn about what's going on today.
Right. And then also a big thing that people try to worry, or when you're doing a reverse, what they worry about is the rate. You and I had that discussion, and it's when we were doing yours, you're like, I don't care what the rate is. I no longer have to make that payment. I don't care.
Yeah.
Well, people don't realize is that the higher the rate is, the bigger the money factor on your line of credit. So if you do have it a 7 or an 8% interest rate, who cares? That is 8% going on your line of credit that you are not touching. That pays you back. So at that point, the rate's mute. People don't even need to talk about rate. You need to worry about, are your bills getting paid? Are you staying in the home that you want to stay in? And how much money you have coming to you on that line of credit.
Another concern people have is the closing costs. Closing costs are higher than going to a straight FHA loan, but they're not really. The difference is the mortgage insurance premium that is required on all FHA can be absorbed into your monthly payments on the traditional FHA.
Correct.
Here, there's no monthly payments, so you pay it all up front. So it looks scary when you first see it. But what that mortgage insurance premium does is buys you that security down the road, because then you're basically guaranteeing the bank. So if you're upside down, they can't come after you.
Correct. It's a one-time fee, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
It does look like a lot. So when people do see them, they run at first. So it's all in how you're going to present it to your client, or make sure when it's being presented to you as a reverse, that these fees are all upfront, and this is why. The good news is you don't bring money to the table. I didn't ask you for a check at closing. I was actually offering you money at closing.
Yeah,
So
I turned it down, but we, you know,
he
it's
did
like, you
turn
know,
it down. He did turn it down. And the good news is FHA wants your house to be, tip top shape. They do come through as an FHA appraisal. There are things that will have to be fixed, but it does not slow down the loan. There are times where they will hold money back until you have it approved, until it's done. They bring in an appraisal, see that it's done, then they release that money into your line of credit or back to you. It's up to you, however you want to handle it.
well, I mean, those are the things that I, like I said, there's so many different ways that people can use this, and maybe the reason became so passionate about this particular product years ago when I was managing real estate firms was when my in-laws, we were needing to get them moved down and closer to us so we could look after them. They lived in a little bitty town called Wabash, Indiana, which, real estate values were a fraction of what they were where we live. And so they were on a fixed income. There was no way they could afford, a similar, little house here.
Right.
And so if there'd have been this reverse mortgage opportunity, we would have moved them down here in a heartbeat. And I think they would have lived longer. I think they would have had, a longer time that they could have, been getting along because they would have had more socialization. They'd have had more, care help, than
Right.
what they had up there, So it's anybody that's got parents that are out in the small town. This is a great way to bring them down close.
Correct. Or move to them.
Yeah, either way, but it's like,
them as well.
but that's not uncommon. A lot of people move to the city for jobs, and their parents are living in some little rural backwoods town. Okay, the
Right.
property values are not there. Well, you're trying to move them close to you, it becomes a problem. This solves that problem
Correct.
because they can buy twice the house for the same money.
Right. I have done reverse mortgages where the kids ended up moving in with the parents in a bigger home. So, however, the family wants to deal with it. You can do several different things with it. But the good news is FHA doesn't control it. Whatever you do with your money, you do with your money.
So what is the process? Let's say that someone decides that they're interested in looking into it. Kind of walk us through what it's going to look like for someone that's kind of putting their toe over there to check it out.
It's basically a traditional loan. You're going to do a credit application. I'm going to sit down, find out what your needs and wants are, kind of set you a map, and then we're going to take a look at your credit. We're going to find out exactly if there's any slow pays, back taxes, anything of that nature. If there's not, then what we do is we move forward. You sign the application process. At that point, we then order title work on your home, just like we would do an FHA appraisal through a third-party company to get that exact value that we're looking for, or the exact value of your home. And then at that point, it goes through a underwriting process, just like a traditional loan. And then at that point, you do have to sit down. Now, the closing process is a little bit more because they do file 2 different loan documents. So you sign 2 sets of loan documents. One is for the bank. The other one is for FHA. There are 2 liens that are filed on title. One is for the loan, and the other one is for if you outlive the loan, then the government can then step in and take over the loan for the bank. And that's the only reason why they are both filed. So the signing process is a lot. You're signing about 225 pages versus 100 pages. But it just depends. It's the peace of mind that you no longer have that mortgage payment. That is the only real change in the process. You're still given a grant, you're still given a money, you're still given a payoff, you're still given everything that you need to have. But then you no longer have to make a payment.
Yeah, and like I said, that's been kind of fun this summer. I've enjoyed that. So,
I'm sure.
Yeah, so kind of every once in a while, I kind of just kind of grin, going, "Well, that was nice," So, but and I will tell you, as I would say this for anybody else too. Why I called you to look into doing this. I always had this in the back of my head that I would do eventually. Okay, but I started looking at what I saw the economy doing, and I am not real sanguine that we've seen bottom yet. So I'm like, let's get this one thing off my plate. I know the house will be there for me or for my wife, and I don't have to worry about it. That to me had a lot of value.
Right. I've done them for my parents. They used it to buy an automobile. My dad did it so he could buy a nicer home on a lake. So he's now passed. But he, his wife didn't have to worry about anything. That was one less worry that she had to worry about. She, had to worry about credit cards or that kind of thing, but that was it.
Yeah.
Mortgage was taken care of.
Well, Dane, I want to thank you for coming and sharing with us today. How would someone get a hold of you if they have a question?
You can always call me. My phone number is 317-679-9768. It's my personal cell phone. It's always on. You can always reach out to me at any point in time.
Excellent.
I'm on Facebook as well, but the easiest is through my cell phone.
Well, I will tell you what, this video, I'll get you a copy of it so you can use it however you want. But it's
Perfect.
also going to go on Life's Copilot. It'll go under our resources tab, which goes into our video library. It'll
Okay.
also go out into our social media, and it'll also go out into our newsletter coming up. So anyway, so I just want to thank you for coming in and kind of giving some people a little bit of a heads up, because I think this could really help some people's situations.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. I look forward to talking to whoever has any questions, meeting your clients, whatever you need to do.
All right, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.